Hey, welcome back to Upstream. Glad you guys are joining us. This is part 2 of a series talking about influencers. So if you missed out on the first one, you're going to want to go back and listen in. We're going to kind of jump up middle of conversation. We just wrapped up the last session talking about what are some of the biblical implications or ideologies, things we need to consider as a believer when we think about who's influencing us, how we're using our influence. So Sherry, I wanted to throw it back over to you for just an opening thought.
And sorry, Sherry, before you take it from there, I think it's important to recognize this is a multi-billion-dollar business for a reason. And because people are having influence. With young people, on average, 4.3 to 5 hours a day on social media, everyone trying to find community, redefining the personal connection. It is vital that this message of who's influencing you, because who wants to fight the culture? Everyone wants to be on social media. So no one's going to fight the culture of where we're headed, but we should consider how we are influenced. Sherry, why don't you take it from there?
Well, I think a good first step is just to ask yourself as a young person or 20-something, 30-something, who are you listening to? Who's influencing you? Mm-hmm. Who's having a way in your mind, in your heart? And then when you start to make that list, then you ask questions like, do they have moral authority to speak to that topic? And I'm talking now not about, which blouse to wear or what kind of shoes to purchase, but more having to do with things of what are you thinking? How should you be acting? What should your behavior, be like? So, does this person have moral authority? Are they rooted in God's word? See, that becomes the standard. It's the beginning and it also is the end. Mm-hmm. Does this person have moral authority to speak into whatever they're trying to influence you for?
Yeah, and I believe real quick, sorry, PC.
No, go ahead.
With our generation, I would believe it would kick back. They don't influence me. I just like them because I'm my own influencer. There's an arrogance and a pride and even like an individuality. That one.
There we go.
My mouth's not awake.
There you go.
To where it's like I'm now building a tribe compared to you're telling me what to wear. I wear what I want to wear. There's a different, I think, even response to who's influencing you. It's like no one. I just like them.
Well, it's what I was trying to get across at our last session. There are no filters. Where culture used to have elders that would filter what comes into a community, where we would even have parents that would filter what comes into our personal being. Mm-hmm. Social media, 95% of young people, teenagers, have smartphones. 95%. So it is having an influence without any filter.
Yes, and so without the acknowledgement of that, they are being influenced.
Well, one of the retorts to the person who says they're not influencing me, okay, tell me how many hours a day or how many times a week or how many, some way of counting the amount of time you let your mind, your heart, be exposed to whatever they have to say. And if they're listening to this guy 6 hours a week, then you just grin at him when he says, he's not having an influence on me. Yeah. I'm choosing. He's just, I want to. Come on, 6 hours a week.
Yeah.
And the issue of stewardship of time. If we're talking to a Christian young person, and we're trying to say, be careful about this, the influencers that are having their way in your life, that's a good way to start. Grab your calendar and just keep a little count.
But I'm concerned, Sherry, that young people are not their moral compass is how many followers a person has. Mm. So they must be good. Since they're popular and there's so many people following them, and I think that's something to be careful of because I'm not sure if they're evaluating the moral compass or the biblical standard in that sense. It seems to be how many followers someone has. Well, they must be good, or they must, and that's something that we need to be careful of because I did some research on some of the top followers, and when you look at their content, when you listen to what they're communicating, whether on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram or whatever. there are a lot of great things that they're communicating and a lot of not so great things that they're communicating.
Right.
And that can get all mixed up in the influence and the impact that it has on you.
Right. It's one of those things now to where we're seeking the followers and the number of likes for momentum and moving forward and approval. People go to restaurants because they got this many reviews on this app.
Yeah.
And it's like,
If
you're
everyone
now
agrees,
influenced.
if everyone agrees, then it must be good.
Exactly.
Yeah. And where I would say Jesus is countercultural.
Yes.
I would say that he doesn't follow the trend. I would say that he calls us to come out of the world. And so who we're influenced by is very important. And it should not, the qualifier should be more of what Sherry's communicating
Exactly.
than how many followers that the person has.
Right.
Romans 12 speaks so much to this whole topic of countercultural. 12:2. Do not be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will. So the instruction to us is not to be conformed to this world. If we're only listening to this influencer or this group of influencers, then we're violating a very important start to the walk of Christ.
Yeah. Christianity is not cool and comfortable.
No, it's definitely not cool.
It's
Definitely.
not cool and comfortable. And I have seen a lot of Christian influencers that wants to make Christianity trendy, cool, and comfortable when Jesus is calling us to pick up our cross daily and follow him. There's nothing cool and comfortable about picking up a cross daily and following him. And my concern is that it's more about the following than the person we're following. And his name is Jesus. And Paul said something very important. He said, follow me as long as I follow Christ. So imitate me as I imitate Christ. And how does let's talk about the Christian influencer. What are they communicating in regards to picking up the cross daily and following?
I gave you that definition earlier before we went on camera. I think that Christian influencers are teachers with the cross. The idea that if you're a teacher without the cross, then you're just telling your ideas. You're just reflecting culture. But we're supposed to be countercultural. So if we're going to be a Christian influencer, we got to have at our heart just these principles we were just talking about in Romans, in a countercultural kind of way, expressing these things for people.
Yeah, I'll actually read the verse. His response, the family's heading in for the feast, and they're like, you need to go, and, you need to make yourself public. And they say to him, for no one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. Well, first of all, they're basing on the wrong supposition. He is not seeking to be known open. Like, his goal is not to become a public image. His goal was to die on a cross. And through that, he influenced with the life that he led and with the words that he spoke. He spoke with a moral authority because he was living what he was preaching. And so I just think the supposition was wrong. Wasn't seeking fame. He wasn't seeking celebrity status. He wasn't even seeking to be an influencer in that sense. He was just simply doing what God told him to do, and that's what he was going to do. He says, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. He was countercultural. So an influencer, and I need to say something real quick. I think everyone should be a Christian influencer on social media. I think every Christian should purpose to influence others for the gospel.
And put a period there. Don't add on Christian or on social media. I think we should be a Christian influencer, period. Whether it's on social media or at our coffee shop or in our living room or sitting in our front yard or at our club meeting. The whole point is we're meant to let our lives reflect the gospel. That's the intent.
What I love about the influencer culture, people are longing to follow something.
Yeah.
People want to follow. So why not lead them? What did Jesus say? Follow me.
Yeah.
Follow me. He wanted people to follow him. He wanted, if he was on the Instagram, he would say the same thing. Follow me. He wants people to follow him because he wants to show them the way. If our goal is to be an influencer, period, then our goal is to do what Jesus, to have people follow Jesus, to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, to immerse them in the knowledge of God the Father. We've got to be careful with all the gimmicks. And we've got to be careful with all of the cool and attractable things, and simply communicate the message.
Well, a Christian influencer has got to be willing to invest in discipleship relationships. That takes time. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of coffee. That's a lot of Bibles open on a table somewhere. That discipleship kind of relationship is part and parcel with being a Christian influencer. They have to be connected to a community. So we've got to have communities for them to be connected to.
But sir, you're redefining again the word personal.
I'm saying that if you want to influence people, you have to be in an intentional way in their life. Yes, I am.
And I think that's important. The word personal does not mean what it meant for your generation.
But it doesn't have to be, see, and I think my generation gets a swipe on that, and I'll push back there. It's not just face-to-face over a cup of coffee. I mean, when I sit down at my desk, I probably have, I don't want to over-exaggerate, a half a dozen people that I'm mentoring or discipling at any given moment. 2 or 3 of them are dying right now of cancer. Somebody over here has got a baby that's being born right this minute, out of wedlock, as they would say, and I'm working with the family. Over here, I've got to communicate, and I'm doing that all online because they don't live in my backyard. They live here and there and there and there. So it's not just over a cup of coffee, but it certainly is personal in the sense that there is a connection between me.
Yes.
There's a connection between me and them, whether it's done online, on the phone, or over coffee.
Yes. I just don't know if our family, the bride of Christ as a whole, is ready to take those types of steps without affirmation, without reward, and without an applause. The beautiful thing about influencers is that they know when they're succeeding and when they're not, instantly.
Instantly.
That is a very
With
good
a follower of Christ, you don't know.
Yeah.
And that needs to be okay, and
Well,
it's not.
Yeah, there's 3 things I think in the influencer culture that we probably should be wary of. One, the culture of celebrity. I want fame. I think there's the culture of consumerism. I have an appetite, and I'm going to help someone feed that appetite. The other is a culture of competition. I have an ambition. I want to get to the top. I want to get to the place where marketers want me to be an influencer for them so then I can create my own product and be an influencer for myself.
Yeah,
And
because
so-
it's a job now. What are you? An accountant. What do you do? I make blueprints. What do you do? I'm an influencer.
It is a job description.
It's a job.
Yes, it is a job. And people are making a lot of money doing it. And there's nothing wrong with that in particular. If they're working and this is what they do, that's their job. I mean, what's the difference between that and someone who's serving tables? And I mean, they're an influencer. As a Christian, what's my purpose? Why am I purposing to be the influencer? There are some practical things that, like this one lady that I looked up, she's got 54.1 million followers, and she just teaches ladies how to put on makeup. So successful, she created her own makeup line. Now she's a multi-quadrillionaire off of Instagram and so forth and so on. And so I don't think it's necessarily bad that she's made her millions on makeup. But then you look at the way she dresses. You look at what she says that you should dress in. So there's a practical side where for a lady, that's how you do your mascara or whatever.
Mascara.
Can we please?
I'm not a lady, but I think that's not.
That's it. That is my new line. Mascara.
Whatever it is.
You can be an influencer.
I understand that there's a value in that practical. But if I'm influenced with how she dresses and how she speaks, because I want to look like her, act like her, be like her, that create some concern.
Yeah.
But okay, so you're talking about being an influencer, right? So what are some do's and don'ts? How does someone who's a believer who goes, okay, here you say, hey, I think everyone should be an influencer. Everyone should make impact. Everyone should be a light in the darkness to
We've
shine.
got some great examples, Zach.
Great.
Obadiah. Obadiah was an influencer to King Ahab. He was a moral standard in Ahab's court. Daniel was an influencer to King Nebuchadnezzar. Joseph was an influencer to Potiphar, and he was an influencer to Pharaoh. We've got, and if we take a look at the lessons of their life, they chose to stand for godliness in ungodly situations. They were all counterculture. But if you're going to go that route, you have to expect opposition. You've got a purpose to recognize there's going to be opposition. You've got to expect to be misunderstood. And your expectation needs to be in the Lord alone, not in the amount of likes you get or dislikes you get, not in you've got to be careful, because one of the negatives is your personality could ebb and flow based on the response of what you've put out online.
Right.
And that is the heart of the heart is deceitfully wicked. Who can know it? And whether we're a strong Christian trying to do a great job of being an influencer or not, we have to be aware of that. We have to fight against those things in the flesh. You see pastors at a pastor's conference. What's the first question they all ask each other?
How large is your church?
How many you had last Sunday? And then that's the.
But you know what they preach about? They all talk amongst themselves. How big is your church? But when they preach, they talk about all the outreach they're doing.
Of course. But my point being, even at the highest realm of our heroes, those who stand on our pulpits and preach, they have to fight against that at every point.
Right.
How many people were there in service? How many missionaries you sent out? How much money did you raise? There's the metrics involved.
Yeah.
So as a Christian influence, we need to think about mission, not metrics.
Great
Right.
word.
That is a
Yeah,
good
that
word.
is a great word. And I think with that, that will protect you. And you had said something earlier that I want to accentuate. You've got to think about, what's my purpose? Why am I doing this? And I think that will also be another protector. Some of the big highlights of being an influencer is that you're authentic, that you're real. Well, I hope Christians are real and authentic, that you're inviting people into your personal story. I pray that we're vulnerable and transparent. So there's some really positive things about doing this online. But if you're manipulating the image and putting something out that you're not, that's hypocrisy. And you've got to be careful with the practice of putting something out that you're not, because you're generating a character about yourself over time, where you've got to now perform to the image instead of be the authentic person that God's calling us to be.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great word. That's a great word. Well, thank you guys so much just for helping us navigate how we use our influence and how we impact the world around us. We want to invite you guys back to join us for our next Upstream. God bless you.